Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Other Guys by Celtic Down Under. I'm your host, John, and today I'm joined by Jeremy from Miami, Florida. How you doing, Jeremy?
Doing well. How is everyone out there?
Yeah, good. We're just speaking off pod about how bad COVID is in Sydney just now, and yeah, not enjoying the lockdown, but it was nice to watch Celtic last night, even though it was finishing at 2 a.m. here.
Man, yeah. We have the opposite problem where
Yes.
I am.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so you must get all these games at a reasonable time, I imagine, with the time zone difference.
7 a.m. is reasonable.
Oh, right. Well, yeah. 7 a.m. still, I'd be in my bed then, let's be honest.
Yes, sure.
If it wasn't a work week. Yeah. Just a little bit of news which came out this morning for Australia or the evening, wherever you are. Celtic has rejected a bid for 12 million plus 3 million in add-ons for Aya from Brentford. Celtic apparently want 20 million and are holding out for that. I think that's absolutely ridiculous for someone who's got 1 year left on their contract. I think 20 million is just dreaming territory. Don't know if you've got any thoughts on that, Jeremy.
Well, for Aya in particular, I feel like, he's been fairly consistent for us, playing out of his natural position. Keeping him for a season and losing out on 12 million, yeah, that's terrible. But will that be the end of things for us next season? Probably not. I feel like keeping him around for this next season, and we not make any wages for or any transfer fee for him, may in the long run be advantageous for Celtic.
Yeah. I think that what they're doing is Sean on the regular pod pointed this out about high risk business strategy. I think what they're trying to do, Celtic board, is they're trying to hold out, keeping their big players like Aya and Edouard to see if we can qualify for the Champions League.
Yeah.
And then we can start selling players. Yeah. I think that's what they're doing.
Absolutely.
And I think that's such a ridiculously high risk strategy. And in Aya's case, I feel quite bad for him because he's not done as out of anything. He was promised to be sold if he stayed on for one more year to try and secure the 10. That didn't happen, but that's got nothing to do with him personally, right?
Absolutely.
It was just a shambles through and through. So we need to accept that he's going to move on. And I think 12 million, I'd shake Brentford's hand quite strongly at that, especially with, it's nearly up to 15 million. I think that's a fantastic offer. So yeah, let's just see how that develops. I also hear that because we're waiting to see what the Aya situation is, we have stopped negotiations with Carl Starfelt, which was the centre back that was supposed to be replacing Aya. So yeah, let's just see how that progresses, but it's not looking positive on the transfer front. Anyway, cool. Well, we'll just crack into the old formula. So first question, Jeremy, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and where you're from?
Sure. I'm 45. Originally grew up in Maryland, just outside Washington, D.C. area. I moved to Florida probably about 30 years ago now. I presently live in Miami, having moved here about 2 years ago. And so far, Miami's great. It's everything. All the stories you hear are true.
My family went and visited Miami a few years ago, and my cousin came back and was in love with the place.
Yeah, it's great.
Think it's brilliant. Yeah,
I never saw myself living in Miami. Like I said, I've been in Florida for years. Never saw myself living in Miami. I got a job opportunity down here, and since I've gotten down here, I love it. It's great.
Yeah, and it's like we were saying before as well, off air. It's very multicultural, so you have
absolutely
lots of different nationalities or ethnicities that are interacting with each other, which is, that's what everybody wants, right? Or at least most people want that sort of, difference and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. What is it you do for work?
I do audio, video, and lighting installations for various different sporting stadiums, churches, live music venues, etc.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. So do you do lots of football stadiums or soccer stadiums
I
in
do
the
a
States?
handful here
Is
and
that something you
there.
do regularly, or is it more like
It's a lot of like basketball, some American football stadiums, a lot of done a couple different baseball
yeah.
stadiums, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. Of course. Yeah, because surely soccer must be down the list on preferred
Well,
sports
I
in the
mean,
States.
it is and it isn't. I mean, the soccer, a lot. The one thing with like the soccer and football stadiums in the United States, a lot more of them are going to soccer and football specific. So they don't like instead of multi-sport arenas.
Mm-hmm.
So there are the opportunities to work in those areas. It's just like and in fact, there's more teams are doing that in the United States. So there is a lot of opportunity to work in those venues.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and that's good to hear. I mean, we'll talk about soccer in America shortly. Let's just crack into the next question because that probably links in quite well. So, what's the soccer culture like in Miami?
Well, in Miami,
Quite
actually,
strong,
the
or is it
soccer and
weak?
football culture in Miami is quite prevalent. There's a lot of supporters here. Though most people here support like Latin teams, Real Madrid, Barcelona, River Plate, Boca Juniors. They have tons of followers in Miami. And even with the MLS team here in town, well, they're not in town, but anyway, Inter Miami FC, if they can get funding from the city to open up a stadium in downtown Miami, that club is just going to explode. Right now, they're playing in Fort Lauderdale, which is about 17 miles north of Miami. Still a pretty big city in its own right, and they do get a lot of people traveling up for those matches. But I feel like if the Becks can finagle the city council to get a stadium downtown, Inter Miami is just going to explode. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
like,
I mean, that's a positive, right?
yeah, it is. I mean, personally, I have like mixed feelings about it because it's not like David Beckham doesn't have enough money to fund a stadium. I'm not necessarily 100% certain that the taxpayers of Miami-Dade County need to be paying for it. But at the same time, there needs to be some give and take on both sides. So if they really want the team to catch on,
absolutely.
they're going to have to, there's going to have to be a give and take.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, no, I don't think David Beckham needs any more money
For sure.
boosts, but yeah, I don't know if you get to watch or you're interested in watching Inter Miami, but the ex-Celt Lewis Morgan still plays for them, or is playing for them.
He's on a
quite
tear
well
for them right now too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know why. Me personally, I thought we had a winner with Morgan.
Absolutely,
I think we just had too many wingers at the time.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the only thing that I can put it. That's the only explanation I can give for it because with how he's playing in Inter Miami and how some of the wingers and the injuries we've had at that position, letting him go was pretty bad idea.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, let's be honest. Right now, if Morgan was still at Celtic, he'd be our preferred winger right now.
I would
he'd
think
be
so.
playing
Absolutely.
in front of Johnson every day of the week.
Yep.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm glad he's moved over there and stuff. And I mean, to go from St. Mirren to Celtic, sort of on and off, to then go to Inter Miami and really not a big team, but a new team that's going places. That's a positive for him.
And he seems to be doing quite well.
All right. Well,
he seems to like the area, and they're paying him well.
Exactly.
So more power to him.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, why wouldn't you love the tropical, hot Miami?
Exactly.
That sounds amazing. Especially if you're from cold, rainy Glasgow.
Right. Exactly.
Like, of course, you'd love that. Yeah. Okay. So next question. we sort of discussed this again just before jumping on, but how did you become a Celtic fan?
Well, like when I was younger, early '90s and such, when I was playing football, soccer, and such, I was playing, I was interested, I was following all the clubs in Europe and all over, and all the kids were like, all wearing Barcelona and Real Madrid and Manchester United kits and so on and so forth, and my family is Scots Irish. I guess we're third generation American. My great great grandfather and great great grandmothers and everything, they all came over from Scotland and Ireland. They all met here in the States, and I was looking for a club that kind of spoke to my background, and naturally Celtic is that club. Around 90, once around 94, when the internet and everything became more accessible to everyone, and I was able to follow Celtic more regularly, that's when I jumped in both feet and became a huge Celtic supporter.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think it's really interesting that you just wanted to follow a team and you followed the heritage roots that you have back to Celtic. Do you know if your family from Scotland is from the west coast of Scotland or Glasgow, or
they are,
was it just a case of that made?
No, they're on my mother's side, my great great grandfather was from Glasgow, and then he basically came over from Ireland to Glasgow, was in Glasgow, and then went to the United States. For my father's side, it's mostly Irish, and then so. Yeah.
Yeah, it always is. It's exactly the same as my family. Right. We're either from the northeast or northwest of Ireland, or from the west coast of Scotland. That's it. There's nothing else.
Yep.
There's no other flavors, no other nice. It's just that one little pocket for as long as you can trace your family tree. That's awesome. I mean, it's really interesting to hear that with, like I was saying, we've had lots of Celtic fans talking about where they're from, and they've been watching a particular match, and they're like, I watched Celtic beat Barcelona 2-1. That day I became a Celtic fan. But for someone who just was like, here's my heritage, I want to follow a soccer team, a football team, I'm going to go and do a bit of research, and I've picked Celtic. That's a very unique thing, I think. I don't think a lot of people do that, to be honest.
Well.
Yeah. So do you were just saying about how, like, in your area of Miami, a lot of the people around you follow Real Madrid and Barcelona and other teams as well. Do you follow any other teams apart from Celtic, any other soccer teams, or just Celtic?
I do, none of which near to the extent that I follow Celtic, but like I have like a large group of friends of mine that are here in the States. They recently within like the last 5 to 10 years or so, they all moved over from Hamburg in Germany, and so when they found out that I was a Celtic supporter, they all went nuts. They thought that was the greatest thing in the world, because they're all FC St. Pauli FC St. Pauli supporters, and so I keep tabs on them. And then
awesome,
another friend of mine, this guy Andy, I know from Wales. He's a huge Newport County AFC supporter, so I keep my tabs on them. And then as far as like in the MLS here, I tend to follow Orlando City, which is a little difficult living in Miami, being that that's the closest rival to Inter Miami. But when I was living up in northern Florida, I was going to Orlando City games back when they were in the USL Pro, which is like a third tier American division. And, I just appreciate the way Orlando City actually worked their way up to join the MLS. Like most of the teams in the MLS are just started. Orlando City worked their way through the ranks and actually, made themselves an MLS club.
Wow. Yeah, that's good to hear that. How's what's your opinion of the MLS? Do you think it is going to go places, or do you think it's going to stay around about where it is now in this sort of like rich league, but where players from Europe go to the end?
I think the way that the league is set up presently, there's not a lot of room for them to, become the preeminent football league out there. They are going to be the retirement league for the foreseeable future, because that's just the model that they have. It's, that each team has like 4 what they call DP, designated players, and those players are not considered in the salary cap. They can pay them what they need, or what the players demand, and then the rest of the players are underneath a certain like a salary cap that they can't go over without being fined for it. And I think that as long as they keep that payment structure in place, I don't see the MLS becoming anything more than a retirement league. That's not to say that it's not an exciting league.
Yeah,
there is a lot of excitement there, and the supporters in the MLS are great, but the product on the field isn't going to improve unless they can compete for players that the European teams are competing for.
Yeah, right. That makes a lot of sense. Do you ever think it could get? I don't want to say as competitive, but as beloved as the South American leagues are. I'm thinking like Boca Juniors and River Plate and stuff. Do you think it could get to those sort of levels?
I think in certain cities, absolutely, but overall, I doubt it. Because the American fans are American sports fans are spread way too thin. And, in order to have that kind of fandom and fellowship that like the River Plates and the Boca Juniors and, even the teams in Mexico have, like the MLS teams are up against way too much competition with with American football, with basketball, and to lesser extents, baseball and hockey. But, So, it's going to, in order to like win over fans the way they are in South America, I feel like, they would need to be getting better and more and better quality players into the MLS.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think at least from the perspective of people who grow up with European football, we definitely see it as in the same way that we probably see the Chinese Super League, right?
Sure,
That's where people
absolutely.
go to make a bit of money before the end of their, like a swan song sort of career. But we are seeing some really good American talent coming out of the MLS. I mean, lots from lots of different teams, but the one that we can think of recently is Timo Weah, right?
Absolutely,
who played for Celtic.
Yeah.
Fantastic player, and I think obviously he was a PSG player, but he's away to somebody. I think it might be a Sierra A team. I forget what it is, but he's doing well, right? So he's progressing well. So we do see these American talented players coming out of that system. So,
and I mean that's the thing.
Maybe that's just what we'll see.
And I think that like a lot of with American players, I think what's been holding, like, the talent is in the United States. Like, there are talented players here. It's just like there's the pay to play type structure for a lot of youth football in the United States, keeps a lot of players that would be great at the sport out of the ability, like keeps them from being able to play the sport. Like if you're a really great athlete and you have to pay to join a club and then pay for all your own equipment and so on and so forth to play soccer, or you can just go join a rec league and play basketball, the chances are you're going to go play basketball because you don't, the monetarily speaking, soccer is kind of a hindrance, really. So I think that once the U.S. Soccer Federation figures out that that's as big a problem as it is and starts to help these local youth leagues bring people in, you will start to see more Americans make a splash, like the Pulisic's and the Weahs and et cetera.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I think Australia. I mean, Jared would be the person to ask. He follows A-League quite religiously, but I think the A-League in Australia has a very similar salary cap system. That's probably also holding it back. Where you can only have certain type of players or certain amount of players that earn above your salary cap and blah blah blah. Yeah, it's not a system I'm used to or understand, to be honest.
Sure.
Yes. So just looked it up there. Timo Weah plays for Lille.
Right.
So he's still in the Ligue 1.
Which they did.
Okay, so we'll
No, go ahead. Sorry.
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was confused about something for a second, but you're right. It is Leon.
Yeah. So, all right. So, just crack into the next question. Are there many Celtic fans in Miami, Florida? I know there's a couple of CSCs up in like Boston and New York and stuff.
Yep.
What about Florida?
I'm friends with a bunch of the guys in like there's a couple of CSCs in like Georgia, throughout the Southeast. There's a lot in Philadelphia, Boston, etc. But in Miami, at one point there was a CSC in Miami. I think it was like from 2000 to 2010. And but I haven't really like since I've moved here 2 years ago, I've like reached out and tried to find a Celtic supporter club here in South Florida, whether it's Miami, Fort Lauderdale, wherever. And I haven't been able to find anyone. So if anybody has any leads, let me know. But generally speaking, no, there aren't really a lot of Celtic supporters in South Florida and Miami area. Everybody, anytime I'm out and I'm wearing my Celtic kit, everybody recognizes it. Everybody knows who it is, but there aren't a lot of supporters.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I don't really fully know the history, immigration routes of the Irish diaspora when they came to America, but I think they all sort of kept, it was either Canada or that sort of top corner of the States, right?
It's generally speaking, like the Irish and Scottish diaspora in the United States came over and landed mostly in like Philadelphia and Boston and Baltimore, were like three major areas where they moved to, and then largely speaking, they kind of stayed there. To a certain extent, they migrated westward when the rest of the country did, but for the most part, you're talking about the northeast area of the United States.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense that there's still some CSCs over there. All right. So who is your favorite Celtic player of all time?
All-time favorite player for me would have to be Giorgio Samaras. He was hit or miss on the pitch, like
very much so.
Like he wasn't always on the top of his game, but I felt like when he was there, he gave a lot to the club, and he was a Hun scalper through and through. Like he showed up for the Glasgow derbies. I don't say the old term for it anymore, but and then the whole thing with like Weej and everything. As a player, I loved him. I mean, I'd be remiss to not say Larson or Burns or Wayama, Ledley, Lustig, Bruni, because I love all those guys. But, I personally have always had a soft spot in my heart for Giorgio Samaras.
Yeah. I mean, I totally get that. Like he wasn't, I'll be honest, right? He wasn't my particularly favorite player. But my family absolutely adore him, and I accept the fact that he scored some really big goals for us in Europe and stuff. And he wasn't, and I appreciate him as a person. I think he's a fantastic person, such a kind soul. But for me, the hot and coldness was just infuriating sometimes. It depended what Samaras turned up on the day. Exactly. I mean, I remember watching Celtic did. This was years ago, actually. This was must have been 2012 or 13. But Celtic came to Australia and did like a little pre-season tour, and they came to Melbourne actually. And I flew out from Brisbane, and I went down and I watched them with my dad, my brother, and stuff. And I actually watched Samaras get the ball from. It was Melbourne Victory we were playing. He managed to get the ball from the Melbourne Victory box, turn around, run past the halfway line to our box to get tackled for Victory to nearly score. And I just thought, that is the most Samaras thing I've ever seen anyone ever do. Nobody else would have done that. But yeah, obviously he, scored some huge goals for us and stuff. And yeah, he was never a bad player. He was just depends on the day depended on which Samaras you got.
Exactly.
But yeah, good, great player. Do you have maybe a favorite player from like the recent era, the modern era?
I mean, from the most recent era, obviously I'm not a big fan of how he left, but Scott Brown to me was the consummate captain while he was there. You know, the fact it turns my stomach to see him wearing an Aberdeen kit, but you know, I understand that.
It's weird. So weird.
It is weird. I understand though, because I mean, you know, Celtic had been in talks with him about, you know, becoming the player coach, and with the turnover there was no consistency whatsoever. And you know, with Aberdeen, he's going to get his chance to play. He's going to get his chance to coach. You know, you might as well go to the third best team in Scotland, I guess. You know, I can start there.
Yeah, absolutely. But we'll probably see Bruni back at Celtic at some point.
In some capacity, I would think so, for sure.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite Celtic moment?
I do. It's funny that you asked that because it has been mentioned in so far already tonight. But when the boys defeated Barca in the Champions League, was it 2012, 2013? Everything about that match to me was perfect. It was exemplary of why I'm a Celtic supporter. From the tifos to the kits they were wearing to like the determination the team showed throughout that entire match, everything was perfect. I was literally in tears at the end of that match.
Yeah, it was one of the best games. Just a huge triumph for Celtic. My cousins managed to go and watch that live. What an experience that would have been. They would have been a bit younger then. Just an incredible achievement. I actually managed to find a signed picture. It was just a regular picture of like the big tifo, Celtic 2, Barca 1, and it got signed by the team. And I gave it to my dad. And my mum is not a Celtic fan. She supports the other team. But so she just outright rejected. It wasn't going up on any walls. It was 100% absolutely not going up on my dad's office. It was straight under the stairs. I'm like, that cost me a bit. Like, do you want to put it out and hang it up? She's like, nah, it's going straight under the bloody stairs. But yeah, it was a great game.
Yeah, the
folklore now, right?
The really funny thing about when like the environment that I was in when I watched that match though was that I went to I was living in Gainesville, Florida, which is where the University of Florida is here in Florida. But I was watching it at what is the traditional soccer bar in that town. And it was me and one friend of mine who were Celtic supporters. And there was probably 200 Barcelona supporters watching it. And let me tell you, that's the best match I've ever seen. I laughed so hard. I cried. It was great.
How were the Barca fans good about it? Were they shocked and surprised and pleased for Celtic?
I mean, when Yama scored, they were completely shell shocked. They had no idea what was going on. And then when Watt scored, it was over. Like we were like cracking up, laughing, falling out of our chairs. Like, oh man, it was hilarious. And then Messi scores and they feel a little better about it. But it didn't hurt their at all that season. So, and it meant everything to us. So, everybody likes to see the quote unquote underdog win every once in a while, and even Barcelona supporters could respect that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the ego. I always think this, like the underdog cares about it more than the big dogs, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Barca fans were like, oh yeah, fair enough. But Celtic, this like we're talking about, it's a folklore game. It's going to go down in history for forever.
I mean, it was the 25th anniversary. Come on, like
exactly. Yeah,
who cares? Couldn't be written better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was just a fantastic game. I'd go on YouTube and I watch the whole game in highlights.
Oh yeah, I do.
And there's nothing on the TV.
Did quite a bit last season as well.
Yeah, Christ. Yeah, we did. Yeah, with lots of different games. Watching Champions League highlights of the Rats era and stuff like Leipzig and Anderlecht and. Leipzig it was Europa, but yeah, watching all those games back, just being even the Man City ones where we were drawn, Yeah, just having to watch him just to get
Yeah, exactly.
get those memories back and the feeling of being like, oh, we were good once. I mean, that links quite well to the next question. So, how do you think next season is going to go? The Postecoglou, Ange Postecoglou's era. How do you think it's going to go?
I mean, I think we're going to pump them. I mean, quite literally, they are overconfident. I think their overconfidence showed in both the cups last season. And, we've had a lot of turnover at Celtic, and I think that the players that are going to be in there are going to be determined to make their mark and show that they are the best club in Scotland. So I'm confident about next season. As for Ange, I'm actually happy with the signing. I know a lot of people were bummed out we didn't get Eddie Howe. I wasn't completely sold on Eddie Howe. I'm not certain that he would have been – I mean, I think he was – in a lot of people's minds, the best option out there, but I don't know that he's necessarily the best fit for the club. I watched Ange's interviews when he was coaching the Aussie 18s as soon as he was named as the coach. And that's the kind of manager I want. Somebody who's fiery, who takes responsibility, but doesn't take crap, And I also liked his comments after the Sheffield Wednesday match and the Charlton match today. He was critical, but gave praise where it was merited. And, I think that I think that in time we will come to find that Ange is the manager we need at this point in time. He's going to need some help though from the board. He's going to need help in the scouting department. The guy, he can't do it all himself. Hopefully, with the new chairman, hopefully we have a new attitude in the boardroom. We will see. Yeah.
Fingers crossed. I mean, this season is very. I think most Celtic fans have given Ange a bye. Mm-hmm. Maybe not so much a bye. They've given him. We've all accepted that he needs to bed himself in. He needs at least a year to sort himself out and sort Celtic out and stuff. So I don't think. I mean, obviously, not winning the league is still going to be unacceptable. Sure. But if we didn't particularly play to the way that we expect Celtic to play for an entire season, I don't think most Celtic fans would blame Ange for that.
No, and I also think based on what I've looked at, as far as his tactics and how he wants to play, if he can get the players to play his style of football, I think most Celtic supporters are going to be quite happy with what they see on the pitch.
Yes, I think so, and we've been talking about this as well off pod, but. The way that he's been setting out some of these preseason friendly games, where he wants really high pressure, high intensity games. That's what we want to see. We want to see entertaining football. We want to watch the Celtic way and stuff. So, that's exactly what we expect as Celtic fans, is that type of mentality, that type of intensity. So, yeah, I think you're right. I think he might not have been our first choice as Celtic fans, but he's probably the one that we need right now.
Agreed.
Yeah. Did you manage to watch many of the preseason friendlies at all?
I didn't see any of the Sheffield Wednesday match at all. I followed. I watched highlights after the fact. I did catch the second half of the Charlton one today. Well, today for me, I guess yesterday for you. So I'm trying not to put too much stake in the preseason matches. I feel like, we've got a lot. We don't know who our starting 11 is going to be yet. We've got a lot of academy players out there. So judging too much from the preseason, I think is a little, little preemptive. Yeah, exactly. But from what I'm seeing so far, I'm not unhappy with what I'm seeing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm the exact same. I think what the biggest takeaway, because we all accept that this is all about fitness. It's all about getting match fit. Sorry. But yeah, what I quite like to see, which is what Ange's been doing, is mixing what we would probably consider either reserves or the Colts, maybe now for next season. Yeah. mixing with what we would also think is the first team. So I think Ange's really trying to assess the entire squad. I think he's just gone baseline. Who do we have, and who can we step up maybe, or who do we need to move on and replace? And I think that's really encouraging to see. There's a couple of players out there that, like Moffat, I think he could step right up. To be honest, if we I mean, Dembele managed to get a goal against Charlton, which is fantastic to see.
On a personal level, I don't know why Dembele hasn't been playing on a at least more consistent basis. Yeah. I mean, I like every time he touches the ball, he's running circles around everyone. I understand he's, his age, and, like, he's going to get his time, but at the same time, he's definitely one of the better players, I feel like, on our squad. I don't know, I don't know about his fitness. Maybe that's an issue, but hopefully we will see more of him this season.
I 100% agree, and it's really frustrating actually, because I think most Celtic fans feel that way. I think probably the reason why he hasn't stepped up is because he's had probably Paddy Roberts and Forrest in front of him.
Sure,
and I think that's been his biggest problem. But I mean, the guy's not necessary. I mean, I think he's 17, maybe 18 now, right?
Yep.
So let's just, argument's sake, he's played most of his career on the right wing. He's still at the age where you could play him as a centre forward. You could play him anywhere in the front three. You can still mould him into that type of character, and you could easily have him play 20 to 25 games a season and still have Forrest as your number one winger. So I think if Ange doesn't step him up this season, we should for himself, but as Celtic, we should try and get as much money as we can, move him on, because it's a waste of talent otherwise. The guy needs to, play games regularly. Yeah, so thanks very much for coming onto the pod, Jeremy, and thanks to everybody for listening. And please subscribe to Spotify or any of your streaming services. We have all of the social media plugs. So if you're on Instagram, it's at Celtic Down. If you're on Twitter, it's also at Celtic Down. Facebook is Celtic Down Under. If you are a national of somewhere outside of Scotland and Ireland and you'd like to be interviewed on this series, please email downunderceltic@gmail.com and I'll get in touch and we'll try and organise something. Apart from that, thanks very much and hail.